Hey, what's up? It's Joe Mill here, back with Killer Miller Q. Today, we're firing up the old Lone Star Grill. We're gonna be trying the Goldees way of making a brisket with the 12-hour hot hold. This should be good. I got a beautiful Snake River Farms brisket that we're gonna be pulling out today. Let's get to the pit. Finally, you show up. The star of the show gonna be late to its own party. Let's get you up out this box and see what we got over here. Oh, I can't wait to get this open. Man, you gotta respect the packaging. Snake River Farms all day long. Can you guess which one we already cooking today? Put all of this stuff to the side. Get up out of here. My dry ice. Nice little pack there. And there go my baby. Okay, not completely out the package yet, but you can at least get a little bit better viewing. Always like it, man. You're gonna spend all this money. And even though I have me a gift card, you still spend all this money. You gotta admire all this stuff. So I do like they always package it up nice. Beautiful looking Snake River Farms decal. We're looking at about 13.5 pounds of this black Wagyu brisket. This baby should be good. We're gonna get it up out of here and I'm gonna let it sit and finish loosening up, and then we'll get the trim going. So here we go. This thing is looking marbled up under there. I'm seeing some areas and some small spots of gold before any trim or anything gets done. I'm gonna try to keep it pretty light as far as the trim overall. This is some good fat that we got in here. Look at that marbling. With this being a Wagyu brisket, so other than bringing down what needs to get taken down to get it even, I'm going to try to lead the majority, especially knowing that I got a long hole coming. But I think we got a decent shape overall. But let's start squaring this thing off. With the miracle of time, we got this brisket pretty much trimmed up. I try not to go too crazy. This baby has had a little bit of time to sit up, but I did have to cut a little deeper than I wanted. This was a thin brisket, and you can see even still with what I left, this baby was pretty thin, and the end of this was even worse because this came out to probably like right out to here or something like that. This side was nice and thick, but to try to get some semblance of around this type of a shape, I had to cut into it a little bit and bring some of this down. But I'd much rather do that than leave that on there. That's going to end up cooking up too tight. And basically I'll end up being able to get me some burger meat. So I did decide, even though this is pretty much already partially frozen, not sure if that quite makes a big difference on the actual overall weight by pulling in some of that water. But this is almost a pound of more or less straight meat, or shall we at least say 80-20 type meat. And then as you can see here, I got a nice little mound of straight up fat. So this is what we're going to be using to render down and give us some tallow. So this will go in there with us along the way. But over than that, we got us a pretty decent look on our brisket here. Kind of evened it up. There is a pretty nice looking gash kind of more or less going through the middle, but I ain't too worried about that. You might end up seeing some pooling that kind of goes through there, so just keep in mind you might need to tip this along the way to make sure that we can get the bark that we're looking to get. But at the end of the day, this baby's gonna be what we want it to be. We got good marbling all the way through, got us a little bit rounded off, and then just so you can kind of see that marbling, let's flip that over so you can actually see the meat side. Try not to go too crazy on there, chasing all of this little bit of fat and silver skin. I'm going to be doing this baby Texas style, fat side up, which is pretty much how Goldees cook theirs. So I'm not too worried about that little bit that's going to be on there. Hopefully that'll help protect me in the end, more or less anyway. So that's what we're looking at as far as a product. The main star of the show, other than that brisket, is going to be this Goldees Barbecue Texas Brisket rub. I haven't even opened up this bottle, so I haven't got a chance to taste it. But we about to change that real quick. The only thing that Goldees does is they'll go ahead and hit it with a little bit of hot water on top. So that's what we're going to be doing today. As you can see, I already got a nice sheen, so I'm going to make sure I pat it dry. Make sure I'm starting pretty much more or less easy or even. And then I'm going to hit it with a little bit of that hot water, just like they do. Come over the top with that seasoning. flip it over, do the same thing on the other side, the fat side, which I'm gonna be doing fat side up. I'm gonna let this chill while my temperature is adjusting in my Lone Star, and we going straight to the pit. This is gonna be a pretty easy cook. They don't do any spritzing, so this thing is gonna sit the whole time uncovered, and until we get almost to my normal temp, then we be pulling it off, and it's gonna be doing a long hold, the hot hold. Okay. So I got a chance to taste that Goldees out the package. I mean, you know what? It tastes decent. It tastes a little SPG-ish, knots of pepper. Definitely don't taste bad. I'm sure it's going to be great on a brisket. Patted it dry a little bit. So we should more or less have the majority of that initial sheen up off of here. I got me some just general hot water that came directly out of my water spigot. I don't know what the hell. Out of the kitchen. We're going to go ahead and give it a nice little coat of some of that hot water. Nothing crazy. And we about to give it a nice coat of this Goldees. And that looked pretty decent. This rub actually covers pretty well. There is a decent amount of salt in there, but it's mostly pepper for sure. But overall, big piece of meat, so you ain't got to be too scared. Always make sure you get them sides. Let's flip this baby over. We'll do the exact same thing. And that'll work right there. That'll work. A little bit of that hot water. And this ain't nothing but that Goldees rub. So basically with that hot water, supposedly is kind of loosening up everything. Loosening up that fat. Allowing it to accept this rub. And I mean, it makes sense because at the end of the day, these days, I'm hardly even using binders. So really, you don't need absolutely nothing if it's sweating out and it's got time to sit. So a little bit of hot water, give you a little bit of moisture, keep it all nice and natural. And we're going to let this sit in here for a second. My grill almost up to temp. And we're going to be going outside here in just a second to get this baby going. All right, let's go. You know we getting this thing started in the dark. We got this tallow gonna kind of be the first line of defense and the buffer up front. And then we got that baby sitting over here. I like to get my point side closer to the fire and where I'm gonna get the majority of my heat from. And other than that, we're gonna let this thing kind of hang out. The Goldees method is super simple. All we need is some clean smoke. We don't got to do no spritzing. And other than that, I got to be careful with that little bit of a gouge that you see, that line in there. I might get a little bit of pooling, so I might have to do a little bit of tipping of this brisket. But other than that, let's close it up. And I'll see you back in a few hours. Hey team, I want to jump in here real quick and let you know, thanks for following along on today's cook. If you're new to the channel, go to the bottom right corner. Make sure you subscribe. Check out any videos you've missed. And if you haven't already, find me on Facebook, TikTok, and IG. Just throwing in a little bit of wood in the middle of the night. Let me get you a little peek, man. We've been rocking along. Supposedly, it should be like we're 6.5 hours on, but full disclosure, your boy fell asleep after date night. Can you believe that? Fell asleep on the old pit. Luckily, there ain't too much to do. There hasn't been anything to do. You just missed a couple check-ins. I did wake up a while ago and got this thing back up to par. Now I'm sitting up chilling, watching some TV and keeping it going. You can see that mean gash going down the middle, but I ain't too mad. It ain't nothing but the fat area, but it will make my bark look not as pretty. Seems to be still running off right now pretty decent, so I won't worry too much about it. Got a little clearance if I needed to. Maybe you can kind of bump up one side, but normally if you get those pockets, you want to just go ahead and pour that liquid off. But I'm not too mad at the way it's looking right now. That bark is solidifying nice. As you can see, we're getting us a nice little bit of tallow over here. Brisket's looking great. I was just throwing some wood in. Figured it was more than past time to get you a little bit of an update. I'm not going to worry too much about temp right now because I know it's not where I want it to be. But we'll come check it out here maybe in the next hour or so. All right, we're getting us a bit of daylight. We had almost 7.5 hours. Keep in mind we had a nap in there, so I'm set back a little bit. But overall, we still cooking along. We had some good looking bark last time. But let's open this baby up. I started off kind of low, more 225-ish to 250. Now we've been kicking up more to 250 to 275. I got more than enough tallow I can see, so I'm about to get that up out of here. Like I told you before, the bark is setting up nice, minus that gouge down the middle, which I'm not too worried about. I am seeing a little bit of pooling, so maybe I'll go ahead and dump that off. But for shits and giggles, let's just see where we at on temp. Normally my bark isn't forming until around 175-ish, 165-ish. Yeah, something about where I'm thinking I am. 173, that's on that point. I'm sure it's it's actually a little higher down here. 183. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm about to give this baby a tip and I'm gonna give it a full-on flip. Oh, went too far right there. The thinner spots is definitely a little more done. We got a ways to go though, baby. So yeah, let me tip it and rotate this thing around. We not spritzing just like they don't do, and we're gonna get this up out of here. All right, and there's a view with it turned around. Man, just a little bit of flavor that was on the spatula. Wow, pretty damn good. Bark's looking great. Keep on going. Let's keep on cooking. We didn't hit that early morning time. We starting to get us some sun around here. All right, we had about 8.5 hours, baby. This thing rolling along, smoking strong. Just kind of curious where we at. It's getting some decent push throughs in some areas, which is ultimately what you care the most about. I'm looking around 186 is in the thickest part. Still got some time to go. Keep it rolling. We are at the pit, baby. Man, this thing is looking beautiful. Still need to tip it. Just came in here. We almost at 10 hours. Looking pretty damn good. I'm getting some readings that's telling me we damn near where I want to be. I don't want to take it to my normal 205 more or less in the center is kind of more or less what I go for, because we do got a long hole coming. So what I'm thinking is, let's get this to about 200 in every spot that feels good. A lot of it is really more of how it feels. Make sure it's not too soft and tender, and then we'll be getting it out of here and we'll get it all wrapped up. Lots of juice. Ooh. All right. 10 hours, 45 minutes. I think this baby about done. I haven't been in here. Man, but check me out. In that early morning sunshine, baby. Come on now. Let me take it slow for you one time. Barked up like a big dog. Hoo, 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 hoo. Yeah. But no, this was feeling pretty good when I was in here last time. Like I said, I don't want to take this up all the way. That's about 200. That was super soft right there. That's about 200. And so you see up there, that was a little closer. And you can just see these push ends. It ain't fighting too much. So I'm gonna get this off of here. And then we're gonna let this just sit open and out so it can come down to about 160 before we wrap this thing up. And it's going in the oven at 150, and that's where we're gonna do this hot hold at. All right, we in the house. Here's a better view of this thing. Like I said, it is barked up, and you can see moisture. This thing is looking juicy. I'm loving the smell, and every little bit of these niblets that I get to taste, yeah, like him. That Goldees tastes great. It's kind of crazy the way it just barks up and turns all black like that, and it was solid gold a minute ago. One thing that I did want to say is literally it's going to sit just right here on my countertop probably for the next 20 minutes or so. It needs to come down, so I don't want to actually keep cooking it. You hear about it sometimes, but I feel like even for myself, a lot of times I don't see it. That's that yellowish fat they were talking about. As you start to get to that thin layer and it starts to really render out, as you can kind of see there. I just think it's kind of cool for me even to actually see it for a change. I don't always see it. But again, another chance for me to get this fat side up brisket, Texas style. Let's let it hang out. We'll come back in about 15-20 minutes and check on it. And then the magic begins. Okay, so literally this is sat for at least about a half hour. I'm still temping, just to give you an idea how long it take that meat to come down. I'm still temping at about almost 170. One thing I did notice as I was kind of getting my oven to preheat is I can't go all the way down to 150. So this is a good time to be able to have that old pellet grill out there. So all I did was get that started up. So I'll be tossing it in there to go ahead and hot hold at 150. Not a big deal, but let's get this thing wrapped up. It's pretty close to about where I wanted it to be. At least I don't got to worry about it still cooking. So I'm going to try a different wrapping technique, something that I had saw that they did over there at Goldees, which was this crisscross method, which makes a whole lot more sense, probably uses a lot less paper, and seems to really lock it in good. So basically all I'm going to do is take some of that liquid gold, some of that tallow that we rendered down there before. You know, it's kind of crazy as I look over here at this brisket. I feel like I should have waited because it looks so much smaller overall, even though it wasn't that big once I cut everything down, but it just looks smaller to me now. But still going to be a whole lot of meat. We're going to start with a little bit of this liquid gold right down here on the aluminum foil. And then basically we'll go ahead and sit that brisket right on top of that. And then we'll go ahead and pour a little bit more liquid gold right on top. Just like you see there. So I guess mainly the idea is you just cook this whole brisket the whole time uncovered. You've got a nice little crunchy, deep, dark bark. And you think long term they're going to actually be holding these briskets for a long time because they won't be serving them until they actually necessarily need them. But one way or another, this tallow is going to help it stay a little bit more moist. It's going to help loosen back up this bark so you're not too dried out in some of these areas. And from there, we'll see how it all come out. See if I give you a tender product. So I'm about to wrap this thing up nice and tight, and then I'll show you the carry package as we put it out there on the old pit. I do like that wrap up nice and tight. At the end of the day, it locks it in from both angles and make sure that you're covered. But we're ready to go. So it's going right back out here. Like I said, my green mountain is already up to temp, 150 degrees, and we still rocking fat side up. All right, I done held the troops off as long as I can as we sitting back enjoying this Super Bowl. Still holding strong out here at 150 degrees. Can't be mad at that, man. This old pellet grill be doing the darn thing. It's been about 9 hours. Let's get this baby in. Let's get it sliced up. Let's get this baby out the package. We in OT. Oh, we already looking nice and wet. I like that. Smelling great. Oh yeah, still a little bit of steam. Nice little bit of jiggle. Let me get it up out this aluminum foil. Alright, so let's get this thing cut open. We got a beautiful little jiggle as you just saw. I'm going to go about midways up between this point and the flat area here. Maybe about roughly right here. Easy cut through. Definitely feels tender. Ooh. Yeah. I'm not even going to go on a limb and tell you this is juicy. Wow. Okay. Let's cut a couple pieces of this flat over here. And it's cutting like butter. Super tender. Nice flap. Super juicy. Let me just give a little. I mean, you can see how tender it is. Woo, it's so juicy. Let me cut the rest of this up. Okay. Woo. This thing is juicy, tender, and so flavorful. Let me pull out one of these pieces. Got us a decent smoke ring. You see this thing. Still a good amount of fat on there, and I didn't trim too hard, so I'm not surprised at that. But boy, look at that thing glistening. Good smoke ring. Check out that bark. Super tender. You definitely got a good amount of rendering that was done even at that long hold. Even though we didn't make it to 12 hours, I can definitely see why that long hold can help. Let's check out over here. I didn't cut all of this up, but the point came out pretty nice too. Whew. This baby is still hot. Look at that. Look at that crust. Fast side up. I can't be too mad at it. And this right here is how we're gonna enjoy this. Nice loaded baked potato, butter, sour cream, some cheese, and a whole lot of brisket. We're gonna get into this, and I'll let you know how we thought about this meal. Tender rummy. Hey man, that cook came out good. This Goldees barbecue rub is definitely the truth. I can see how this gets voted #1 brisket in Texas. This rub, I think after now getting a chance to taste it on the meat, it developed a great bark all the way over it. It can be a little salty, I think. Now, part of that might be also with using the Wagyu brisket. A lot more fat in that brisket than a normal brisket. So it wasn't too salty for me, but it was one that once I tasted it, I noticed, I'll make sure I back off a little next time. Make sure I don't overcrowd it. Don't want to be too salty for somebody else's palate, especially as I kind of put it in other things and add other stuff to it. But all in all, that brisket was money, as you saw. Super juicy. And obviously that might be more of the Wagyu versus the technique, because a lot of that is all in the marbling and all that extra fat you get out of there. But just let's break it down and go back over the process. We had a 13.5-pound brisket. I cut off just about 3/4 of straight meat along with it, and I didn't weigh the fat. If I had to guess, easily at least 2 to almost 3 pounds of fat came off of there. So keeping that in mind, shouts out to wifey, you know, she hooked me up with a gift card, so I was able to get that one there with a little bit of nothing out of my pocket. But if you was actually looking at paying for that, you paid quite a bit of money to get into that Wagyu category and get yourself a brisket. I think that one was like 150 bucks from Snake River Farm. So at the end of the day, when you think about how much fat is on there, you do lose quite a bit, especially then once you cook it. You got about half of that that's going to turn into mush, I guess, you know, whether it's fat that's going to end up in your grill or fat that you'll end up cutting off or whatever have you. But, you know, you really do decrease down as far as the overall size on how much cooked meat you got. But it's super flavorful. Definitely had moisture flowing through and through. If you could notice on the cutting board, all on my glove, I mean, it's definitely a much richer product. I mean, it was one where I found myself having to wipe my lips after a while and it felt like I just had put on chapstick, you know? It's definitely a lot more oily, and I can see why a lot of times they talk about you wouldn't be able to sit there and eat as much brisket when it's Wagyu versus, or in competitions versus what you can do when you get a normal brisket at your house, a prime, a choice, or something like that. That's going to be much more like in your steak category, more chewy, more meaty, whatever have you. But it was nice to play with the Wagyu every once in a while. Still kind of getting it dialed in as far as how they cook versus a regular brisket. But I enjoy it. But if you ask me, if I was spending my dollar for dollar, which one would I want? I'm much more of a prime person. Give me a nice prime that's going to have some good marbling in there. I like meat. I like something to chew on. I like it actually being there. I'm not so much of it has to be absolutely saturated in oil, and I don't eat a whole lot of the fat itself, so there is quite a bit when I look at it as in that I would end up cutting off getting prime biscuits or parts that don't end up being able to be cooked other than using it for tallow, versus if you give me a nice prime versus that Wagyu, I can pretty much, you know, shave off what I need to in the beginning. By the time I'm done cooking, everything else goes straight to the board, gets cut up and gets served, and not too much gets left on the plate. I like that personally. And I damn sure like that price tag. You know, I could probably get me a prime brisket in these areas these days for about $3.99 a pound versus, hell, I don't even know exactly what that was a pound. Roughly more in like that $10 range or a little bit more. So for that price difference alone, I would slide more towards the prime. But let's talk about the old Goldees method. 12-hour hot hold. I didn't quite make 12 hours. I fell asleep a little bit on my initial startup, so I lost me a couple hours as my fire kind of died down. I had to stoke that baby back up once I woke up. But in the end, it ended up cooking for just inside of 11 hours. So it kind of cooked pretty quick at the end of the day, which I was kind of expecting. And getting it into that hot hold, I was only able to get about 9 hours in. This was for me, this was my Super Bowl cook, so I had to have this one ready for game time, or more or less when we was ready to eat towards halftime-ish. And 9 hours in, I actually kind of like the idea of doing a hot hold, mainly because no matter what time you want to serve, you can get your brisket done early, set it in there and forget it, and you don't got to worry about it no more. And then when you pull it out, it's ready to get cut and served right there off of the cutting board, which is pretty much what happened. And I kind of like the way that flowed. I wasn't able to put it in my oven It only went down to 170, which probably would have been fine. I went with coming out here and put it on the pellet grill. I mean, my pellets don't run that much. I get a Costco brand. It's like $13 for the whole bag. So put it down here for 150 and letting it kind of just do its thing, and it was out the way and outside. I kind of like that as well. It was a good little setup and all in all. I think it definitely helped as far as kind of rendering it out. And if anything, I think when you think about them from a restaurant standpoint, they're going to have these things cooked. They're going to have them sitting to the side. You're able to kind of keep it where it's not going to be completely dried out, but it's also ready to serve at any time. And you can pull it out and it's already got that moisture from the tallow on there, which is something I was kind of already doing, just a little different technique as far as how they actually hold it. But I like it. It also lets you, by putting it into that aluminum foil, which is something I wasn't doing, it allows you to kind of let it really stay in there and re-soak up some of that tallow, loosen up that bark that might get a little hard. A lot of times you get those dried out edges towards your point, or the edges of the brisket more in the flat and stuff like that, because that's the areas that got done faster out there on the smoker. Having that little bit of tallow on there and letting it warm up in there, I think it let it reabsorb, and my brisket bark was still nice and dark. It was still solidified. It came off perfectly, but it was a lot more soft and moisture, and I didn't have that cracking at the edges like sometimes I do have. So I kind of like that as well. Overall, fat side up on the old Lone Star, you can't go wrong, man. You always gonna get some smoke out of that thing. It was pretty smooth and easy as far as my cook. Can't be too mad, even though I did have some moist wood. But at the end of the day, the one thing I've learned is you put a good amount of wood underneath, and if nothing else, with my top on there, I always got a lot of wood that's uncovered, or wood that was there that has been covered, that's gonna be usable. And then from there, once I got my early fire started, I was able to kind of start preheating logs off to the side, get a lot of that moisture out of there. Cooked like a dream, wasn't no problems at all. And as you can see, day after, everything looking good around here. So another good cook in the books, Goldees. I'm gonna hold on to this one, and we'll see what else we can put that on. I appreciate all y'all for checking it out. My people's over there at Black Smoke Barbecue, my family, and you in TV land. I appreciate y'all, man. Next time, come get some of that brisket. But I'll catch y'all next week. Peace.